Sister Mary, a young nun, prays and patiently waits for the Mother Superior to doze off in order to take her keys. She rushes towards the church exit but is spotted, leading to the pursuit by convent members. If she can't open the gate, she'll squeeze through the bars to escape. Regrettably, one of the members seizes her leg and fractures it. Overwhelmed by the pain, she loses consciousness, only to awaken trapped in a buried coffin, screaming desperately for help. Following that, a police officer interrogates Sister Cecilia. The officer warmly greets her, welcoming her to Italy and wishing her luck on her journey to becoming a nun. Sister Cecilia is greeted at the airport by Deacon, who then accompanies her to the church. She arrives at a special convent dedicated to caring for dying nuns. Isabel, another sister, warmly welcomes her and gives her a tour.
Isabel?
Sister Isabel seems irritated by her presence and suggests she leave now before she reconsiders, but Cecilia is already determined. In the bathroom, Cecilia meets Gwen, her sister, who apologizes for intruding and suggests locking the door next time, as she had just finished smoking a cigarette. She readies herself for the serious ceremony where she will make her vows. Once again, she crosses paths with Father Tedeschi during the proceedings, the very person who first proposed she enter the convent. During the ceremony, Cardinal Franco leads her through the vows and formally declares her a nun. During the ceremony, Cecilia converses with Father Tedeschi, who expresses his deep love for being at the convent. Cecilia shares her past with him. At 12, she had a near-death experience when she fell through the ice on a lake. She was pronounced dead for 7 minutes, but survived. Cecilia is grateful to God for granting her a second opportunity for life. So when Father Tedeschi asked her to join the Italian convent, she eagerly accepted. In the bathroom after the ceremony, Cecilia hears someone sobbing. Following the sound, she discovers a nun in prayer on the floor. Cecilia offers her comfort, but when the nun looks back, her face is missing, causing fear. Then the Reverend Mother emerges and leads Cecilia to the altar. She presents Cecilia with a nail from a glass box, claiming it belongs to Jesus' cross. Cecilia is shown the Reverend Mother's hand. According to her, it symbolizes her forgiveness for past wrongdoings. This disturbs Cecilia, causing her to faint on the ground. Upon awakening, Cecilia tries to confess her sins to the cardinal, but he stays silent. Despite her repeated calls, she was grabbed from behind by multiple arms and held tightly by hooded figures in front of her. One of them stabs Cecilia in the chest after their hands touch her face, causing her to jolt awake from her nightmare. Her eyes shift towards the door and she notices a person looking at her, gradually approaching. Cecilia illuminates the lampshade for a clearer view, but finds no one at the door. The Reverend Mother spoke to everyone at breakfast except for Cecilia and Gwen, who were caught giggling. The Reverend's mother noticed and scolded them. The young nuns then became acquainted with the daily activities of the convent. Working together, Cecilia and Gwen found joy in each other's presence. They helped take care of an elderly nun until she passed away. Cecilia observes Sister Isabel looking at her, but when a white sheep momentarily obstructs her line of sight, Sister Isabel disappears. As Cecilia is about to fall asleep later that night, her hair is suddenly cut by an older nun. Cecilia, feeling confused but not wanting to disrupt, goes with the older nun to the clinic where the ailing nuns are cared for. Prior to her departure, Cecilia observes a cross-shaped scar on the nun's feet. The following day, Cecilia and the rest of the young nuns take a communal bath, and Gwen tells her story of joining the convent. Gwen used to live with her abusive ex-partner, but when she finally stood up for herself, she knew she had to escape. Seeing the security and shelter offered by the nuns, she joined them despite her weaker faith. Cecilia silently listens to Gwen's story until she abruptly starts feeling sick. While waiting for the results of her checkup, she notices a figure outside. She observes it briefly but is startled when a burn suddenly lands in front of her. Cecilia is summoned to the cardinal's office for questioning. Before entering the convent, the cardinal inquires if she has violated her vows. Cecilia denies it fearfully. Father Tedeschi inquires about her previous experiences with men. Cecilia denies it, even though she's never been in a relationship or lost her virginity. The doctor's examination reveals a surprising discovery. She is pregnant. Cardinal and Father Tedeschi are ecstatic, convinced that Cecilia is the next Virgin Mary. They hold a ceremony to celebrate the miracle given to them by God. Sister Isabel and Gwen appear displeased, though. Cecilia experiences strange happenings as she enters her second trimester. While throwing up, she realizes that one of her teeth has come out. Cecilia, who was enjoying a relaxing bath, was unexpectedly forced underwater. Isabel tries to drown her, but she is saved by a senior and 2 younger nuns. Isabel was being dragged away, shouting in anger about how she should have been the one. The baby's condition is a relief after the checkup. Cecilia questions Father Tedeschi about the meaning of Isabel's statement. Isabel's jealousy towards her is explained by him. When Cecilia asks for another doctor, they come up with excuses to stop her from going. Cecilia became cautious and suspicious of the other nuns following Isabel's incident. As she walks down the hallway, she notices two nuns gazing at her through a window. Out of nowhere, a person leaps off the rooftop. Cecilia hurries to see who it is, but is shocked to discover it's Isabel. Gwen warns Cecilia not to trust anyone at the funeral. Father Tedeschi intervenes upon hearing this, inquiring about the issue. Gwen becomes angry and starts yelling at everyone because they appear calm and unaware of the reasons behind Isabel's death and Cecilia's pregnancy. Until Father Tedeschi and Deacon Enzo remove her, she continues to make negative comments about the convent and its superiors. In the late hours of the night, Cecilia secretly enters the cardinal's office and uses a knife to open the cabinet. Upon searching, she stumbles upon a folder brimming with news articles about the accident she barely evaded. Out of nowhere, she hears a scream and tracks it down to its origin. In a room, she stumbles upon a sight of a nun without a face, cutting off Gwen's tongue as a form of punishment. Cecilia retreats from the door and is startled as a frail nun muffles her scream. The ill nun passes her across with her hair wrapped around it. Cecilia begs the nun for help in fleeing, yet the nun ominously declares that no one can escape the convent. The following day, Cecilia's scream startles everyone, including Father Tedeschi, who rushes to her room. Cecilia pleads with Father Tedeschi to bring her to the hospital as they discover her bleeding profusely. Nevertheless, a nurse who is praying in Cecilia's room senses an unusual odor in the blood. Under Cecilia's bed, she finds a bag filled with the blood of a deceased chicken. While en route to the hospital, Father Tedeschi receives a call disclosing that Cecilia fabricated the miscarriage as an escape plan. Despite trying to escape, Cecilia is caught by Father Tedeschi. The convent brings her back and a senior nun forcefully bathes her, scolding her for trying to escape. The senior nun slaps Cecilia in the face when she talks back. Father Tedeschi restrains Cecilia in a wheelchair while revealing the nail from the box. Prior to becoming a priest, he confesses to being a geneticist who extracted DNA samples from the Christian nail in order to create a new Jesus. They achieve success in creating another Virgin Mary after 20 years of hardship, and she would give birth to the new Jesus. In the basement, Father Tedeschi reveals the jars with the fetuses to Cecilia. Father Tedeschi burns Cecilia's feet in the shape of a cross while Deacon holds her leg. At last, Cecilia has been confined to a room to prevent any further escape attempts. With tears in her eyes, Cecilia speaks to the cardinal as she removes a nail from her finger in her third trimester. The doctor examines her baby once more before entrusting her to the Reverend Mother. Cecilia quietly seizes the crucifix and fatally strikes the Reverend Mother while she's preoccupied with the baby monitor. Cecilia emerges from her room, suppressing the cries of agony as her water breaks. Cecilia surprises the cardinal by sneaking up from behind and strangling him with her rosary, resulting in his death. Dr. Gallo catches her, but flees in fear. Cecilia goes directly to the basement, dousing Father Tedeschi's lab with ethanol and igniting it when Father Tedeschi shows up. Once again, Cecilia experiences abdominal pain, creating an opportunity for Father Tedeschi to prevent her from burning down his lab. She takes a flask and strikes Father Tedeschi on the head with it, then flees. Cecilia attempts to flee, but Father Tedeschi, locking himself in the lab, grabs hold of her hair, preventing her escape. Cecilia has no choice but to ignite her lighter and throw it to the ground, causing both Father Tedeschi and the lab to catch fire. Father Tedeschi bursts through the door, saving himself. Cecilia quickly descends and discovers the catacombs beneath the convent. In her frantic run for an exit, she pauses upon hearing a voice calling out to her. Fear takes hold of her as she scans the chamber and switches on the lights, only to find Gwen's mutilated body. In her desperate attempt to flee, she persistently searches and finally notices daylight seeping through a hole that's big enough for her to crawl through. Father Tedeschi catches her before she can flee and begins chanting rituals while cutting Cecilia's belly to retrieve her baby. Despite her agony, Cecilia seizes the crucifixion nail and thrusts it into Father Tedeschi's neck. Father Tedeschi suddenly dies, and Cecilia emerges from the opening. Outside, she kneels down and screams while giving birth to her baby. Cecilia is terrified by the appearance of her baby, indicating that the baby has transformed into a monstrous creature, clear from its inhuman gurgling noises. Before grabbing a rock, Cecilia uses her teeth to cut the umbilical cord. With a terrifying cry, she uses the rock to fatally strike her own child, marking the end of the story.